All right. Good evening, Littleton. This is the Charter Committee on April 27th. Got a few more meetings to kind of wrap this up so we can turn it over to the Select Board very soon here so they can decide what they're going to do with it and where we're going to go with that. So with that, before we start going through the document and the updates I have in there, so I've got updates from, I went through all those minutes that you did and I caught a few more updates that I didn't have. And then some of the new sections that we have on there. I hope Anthony's going to be on, but I'm not sure. But before we do that, let's do the handout. Can we review the handout?
Sure.
So part of the discussion was we need to get more, this was a discussion from the Select Board meeting, our joint meeting with the Select Board. How do you start getting the word out and the publicity and the people understand? We've had our public forums and so on, but other things need to happen. There's a discussion of having a meeting like they did for Shaker Lane before, and in further discussions with Karen Morrison and so on, we kind of thought maybe a handout might make more sense because that would get in everybody's hands, and that would just start the process of understanding this is happening and to be aware of it and start thinking about it and looking at it. So with that in mind, I guess we talked about that last time. So
does anybody want a copy to look at? No.
So I know Kevin had some updates. I don't know if you got them from other people or not, but.
Not yet.
So when I review something like this, I look at it from different perspectives. And in the little gray block, town manager model with clear guardrails, it says that light and water library would remain independent. And I just want to talk about the word independent. Is that a good word? For what, are they independent today and they'll continue to be independent? What does independent mean? Or is that an accurate representation? That's all is that a good representation of what they will be?
Let me just throw out, maybe add the word essentially, because I think they are essentially independent.
Or remain unchanged?
Unchanged.
Yeah, that's another way.
I think that's good. That's good. That's
Yep.
all right. Cool. And then Charlotte, in the next block, a review of elected versus appointed positions, and I was wondering if it's appointed positions and committees. And
I can
but
appointed positions, committees, and boards.
right, you speak to that in the last sentence of that block. You
Boards,
say some
committee, yeah.
right.
Echo that above.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks.
And then this is probably bigger. Below the three gray blocks, it says what's next. And it says that we will be sharing our recommendations with the Select Board in late summer of 2026. That's later than I thought, number one. And number two, that probably would not sync up with a review of this at a fall town meeting. There's legal review, there's all sorts of review that needs to take place. And if we're, so.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things that I wanted to
issue,
ask.
yeah, the bigger issue is, are we all on the same page? That this is in fact going to, and maybe that's what you want to talk about or whatever, is this schedule on point? Is it accurate? Are we all on the same page about this schedule? I hope that we are moving toward presentation, as you said, Betsy. As I look back at our charge, we were 18 to 24 months, I think, culminating in the spring of 2026, handoff. And that's, unless there's some reason not to do that, and I don't see any, I would presume that we would look to be wrapping up our work soon and presenting our recommendations in some form, not only in the form of a document, but maybe some editorial content to go along with it. So, big question. Are we able to commit at this point to dates?
So I'm glad you brought that up because when I drafted this, I feel like if we didn't have questions, others would have questions when they were reading it. So we do want to make sure it's clear. Late summer, we could, for instance, say spring 2026. I was also wondering we could hedge a little bit here. Residents may be asked to vote on the proposed charter. And then, if approved, I wanted to give people a little bit of a sense of what the next steps are without being too specific,
Agreed.
because we don't know everything yet, right? So,
So, yeah, and I
makes sense.
I actually have, my last comment is about another next step. If we could, there's any way we could allude to a next, now that we've teased them with all of this stuff, what is a next step? Is there a next step we could refer to before the fall town meeting? A chance for them to engage, either with us or the select board? Could we, or,
Oh,
Doesn't it go to
Hi,
the
Anthony.
select board before it goes to the town meeting?
we can't hear you, Anthony.
Oh,
there we
sorry.
go.
I just, not to interrupt, I just wanted to make sure it goes to the select board before the town meeting, so the select board may have I can't guarantee this, but they may have a hearing or may want to do something
No, I think
with it.
they intend to do that. Yep. As well as make changes to the document, so.
Okay. Do we want to include all of that, like, the select board may have a hearing, or
I mean, I think you kind of infer that it goes to select board next, but maybe there's no real, like, call to action for the residents there. I don't know how you could reword it to say, we hand off to select board and select board, I mean, we would want to confirm with select board that they're going to have a public hearing on it.
we could maybe
stay tuned for more opportunities to,
engage?
but you'd need to get agreement from the select board that they were
Yeah.
agreeable to that
Sure.
that semi-promise. And I hope that there is, between now and whenever we present this at a town meeting, I hope there are more opportunities for formal, not just coming to this meeting or any, I hope there's like more of the type of things that you've planned for us, engagement sessions, either with us or the select board.
I could maybe draft that
Once we hand off
sentence
the
and
select
ask.
board, I think we're done, right?
And pretty much, I mean, yeah, we may be asked to come in and answer questions and so on.
Yeah,
but
but
in terms of
but
the work,
in
it's on
terms
them
of
now.
us holding
Yep, right.
meetings for people,
They want to change things and there's probably a different group of
So if
people
I
to change
added
things.
that sentence, then maybe we just ask the select board to approve this draft with particular attention.
Hey,
That.
more guys in pink shirts tonight, huh?
Oh,
See?
Spring is sprung.
He's in a good
Or
mood
maybe-
today, huh?
Get it phrased as what's next. Maybe you could have like the call to action piece, you know, what can you do or what can you, for that heading.
Right,
Get
right.
involved. Do you,
Or I could even call it stay tuned or something, or like,
yeah, or I'd even just say, whatever, you know, do you have feedback, do you have comments, do you have, like something actionable that.
so maybe something a little bit more pointed. The third bullet later says questions and feedback are welcome anytime, but something maybe it's a little bit more like, please share your questions and feedback. That's a little more like,
There's
we
some
actually,
to-
yeah,
yeah.
okay. Not just passive, but more active, okay. Okay.
And then I have one comment, if you're done, or if I may. Under town manager model, we say police and fire chiefs would continue to be appointed by the select board. But the change there is that they would report to the town manager.
That's okay. But, you know, it's still just an overview, so I think it's okay to leave it for now.
Okay. So I'm just thinking if we're highlighting
Well,
some key changes.
Well, but again, originally, we weren't even going to get into this level of detail.
Okay.
It was just going to be, this is what a charter is, this is what a charter is
then
about, this is
maybe
what we're doing with
strike
charter. So it's just, it's supposed to be
Yeah.
where we're going, not getting into.
So maybe strike that part? What's the purpose of putting that in? If we're not trying to get into the detail.
I mean, we could strike the entire last sentence. That was a question. I know we just said we could say unchanged, but to your point, Betsy, about like how much of the decision-making detail do we want to get into in this document, starting with police and
Because that is a
whole
change.
section.
There is a
Yeah,
change
that's
there.
right, that's why, yeah, why don't we just, I'd be
You
okay
just
with
get rid
that,
of it.
Okay.
the last sentence, yeah.
This is the QR code and the website. I mean, that would lead
Right.
people to the entire document, the briefs, the 2 summary pages. Like, if people want to go into more detail, they can just scan and get there straight away.
Okay, I would say, if everybody's in agreement, in terms of the handing it over, give it to, you could just say in summer of 20, instead of late summer, say summer. Hopefully, it's going to be early, from my standpoint, it's early summer. Okay, we can talk about that tonight, but from my standpoint, it's early summer. 2 or 3 more meetings. And we got to hand it over to them, because there's no use in us going through and fine tuning if they're going to say, yeah, but we're not doing that, we're doing this. So,
Well, that would
Right?
actually, that would actually say early summer.
yeah, you want to say early summer? Okay.
Because I'd hate to think the select
Yeah.
board getting it
No, then,
in
no.
August. And
It's not going to. Well, I mean, nothing could happen if that happened. It has to be early summer. I mean, that's okay to say early, because it has to be early summer, nothing's going to happen. Okay.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
thank you very much.
I just squish it all into.
Anybody
one
else?
page.
On this? Nope. Okay. All right, thank you for that then. All right. Into the document. Hey, Anthony, welcome back. Hope you had a nice vacation. Nice tan. He went to Florida.
Sunshine.
All right, we just get started and go through it. So bring it up and let's just start at the beginning, go through the yellow highlighted areas again and look at my comments. I don't remember now what all I put in there, so my document just shows the yellow but not the comments.
start at the very beginning.
Yeah. Before we do that, is there public input? I don't know if people came for a specific reason. Carol? You want to wait? Okay.
So is 2-4 the first section you want to go through?
No, oh geez, no, that's not the one we want. No, that's not it. It should just be not until you get to 3-3.
Yeah.
This one's dated 4/24/26.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I
the
don't know.
version
Other
that-
people, you had the same problem. It must be your version of Word shows up differently or something like that.
Because my version is the 424 version, and the first highlight is in 3.3.
Yeah,
That's what I got.
I think it's different versions of Word. That's all I can figure out what it is. So, all right, so we'll guide you through that then.
Yep.
All right, thank you. All right, so 3.3. Can you look at the comments on there too? Read them for me. Let's see. Oh, this is the thing. All right, so so you can read my comments. I think what happened here was, so we had this thing about the select board members can serve as but they can't be the chair, and we wondered about how to do that, temporary committees like search committees, and that was vague and not good enough. Since then, Steve Venuti sent me something because they have this capital planning work group. And by definition, a select board member is the chair of that. So I think we ought to just get rid of it. I think we discussed possibly doing that anyway, but this is just going to have to be done. This is going to have to be bylaws, select board and their policies, how they do things and so on, and not have it in here. Because we're just restricting ourselves too much.
Just wipe it out.
Up to discussion, but we don't want to put something in here that doesn't make any sense, right? If it's not working, then that's fine. We know what the intent is, and I think there's kind of the intent there now. It's the select board, are some of your operating norms or whatever you call them?
We have a policy not to be chair
Okay.
of committees that we don't have to be chair of.
Okay,
It's just a select board.
right, so you could change it any time, but it is there now, so there is something. Okay.
So just stop at the first sentence.
May serve as appointed members of but no, take that yellow out.
Okay.
Everybody's okay?
Agreed.
I would
Yes.
just maybe add that if we're not putting it here, to me, it doesn't necessarily make sense to recommend it as a bylaw. Like, I think the whole point of the charter is to try to limit the amount of little bits that are elsewhere. But if it's already in a policy, to me, makes sense to keep it there.
Okay, 3.4E that's just there because, well, I know, are there any comments there? I think that's just there because it was there before, because we changed the town clerk and so on, and so it's still highlighted. Are there any new comments? I can't see them from here, Karen. Can you look up here?
Revisited town clerk should be elected
Elected or
or
appointed,
appointed.
that's right.
Move veterans to town manager appointed.
All right. We want to have a discussion of the town clerk and changing the position on that, or leave it?
Still think the town clerk should be elected.
I agree.
You agree? And you agree now?
I do.
Anybody else? Feel the
Just
same?
leave it as a split and let them.
Okay, let the select board decide. Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, but we've got it in
We'll
the.
just keep going around in circles.
Okay, that's fine. Again, it's one of those things, I mean, even a lot of us, at least me, it's not like I'm not 100% here or there. I'm like
Right.
60/40, even that, so it's all,
Exactly. I
Okay.
don't feel like it's some.
Okay.
I think I could agree either way.
right. All right, then,
The last one, though, veterans agent.
The veterans agent, yeah.
yeah,
Currently, it's what? C?
it's select board right now. And I think that's one of those things, I think in Mass General Law, the standard is it's select board, but other towns have changed it in their charters to be town manager.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
think
it more properly belongs there.
Town manager?
Yeah.
I agree with that. So we'll just take that out then, that the, under the select board, they will not be the appointment of the veterans agent. You guys have any issue with that?
Then I would have to make sure we find a place for it somewhere else.
Well,
right?
it just by default, it goes,
Then it just defaults back to the town manager. Okay.
yeah, we can look at the town managers and see if it's there, but I think if it's not there, then.
Okay.
Actually, let's just look real quick. Do-do-do-do-do. Let's just look. While we're on it, let's just look. Because I don't think we spell out every appointment that they make. Well, I know we don't. So, all right, let's just move on.
You
Yep,
you probably need to put it in as in the specific, because I think the law says we have to appoint it. So if you're changing.
that's a
it
good
to
point. Then
something-
that's a good point. That's a good point, Mark. All right.
Whereas the other ones aren't legal.
Yep. All right, so. Town manager. Shall appoint basis of all department heads. So where are we gonna put it here?
Well, if I may.
Yeah?
So, I couldn't hear the comments from the room, but, so section section B in 6-1, the town manager shall appoint based on merit and fitness alone, or remove all department heads whose method of appointment is not otherwise defined in the charter, by law, town meeting vote, or select board vote. So it would seem that it would be covered there. If you want to specifically call it out, I think you could add it, a sentence in paragraph D of that section.
If you say it's covered, then I say it's covered, but what do other people, is it worth calling out? I don't.
I don't think so.
Okay, all right. If Anthony says we're covered, then I'm good with that, if everybody else is.
Maybe throw it to town council and say,
Yeah.
do we need to have it included in the charter, just to ask for a legal, given Mark's comment?
Let's see.
They're gonna review the whole thing.
Right,
They are, but
Yeah, we
might
can
be helpful
flag
to
for
note them
them.
of,
Yeah.
we have awareness that
Right.
somebody thinks that we should be stating it in order to be compliant with law, and if we're gonna overrule law and charter intentionally, then town council should just give it here.
All right, I'm totally lost. What section are we at? Was making everybody throw up watching this whole big screen.
okay. All right, so that was the veterans agent one. So we good? 51D,
Oh God, we're gonna get like car sick watching these.
I know, huh?
Sorry, everybody.
Well, not your- yeah.
Five one D.
51D.
There we go.
Okay. All right, so the two questions there were, is vote then a majority of those present versus per board? That was one of the questions that came up with the select board, right? So if you have, somebody's missing on an appointed board, so then the board of, that board and the select board would get together and decide who's going to appoint. So is it just a majority of whoever's there, of the select board and the appointed board? Or do you somehow do a majority of the select board versus majority, you know, to me that was,
Let's ask someone official.
and then what do you do if it's, one does that one way, one goes the other way?
No, but like, if we're gonna have legal look at it, let's ask them what the rate
Well, how do we want it to work?
procedure is.
If I may.
Yeah?
So typically what happens is if it's a joint appointment,
Yeah?
typically what happens is the board that is deficient is looking for a person to come on their board.
Yep.
It typically is their suggestion to the select board that this is the person that we're looking to bring on board. And it's typically their vote. They typically would go first, and they would make their suggestion and their vote. And then the select board typically would go along with the vote of the other board that is coming before them. It has happened once in that the select board, a couple of members of the select board did go against what the other board, the board that came before them wanted, but it ended up that they came around and went with what the board that came before them.
Is that how it happened with the planning board just recently?
If you,
The
my
planning
opinion-
board was a joint vote, is the way it ended up voting. We've done it both ways at different meetings. I just wanted clearly specified with it one way. We have done it when we appointed someone, I think it was when we appointed you to Light and Water?
Light and
that
Water, yeah.
Light and Water voted, and then the select board voted after they did, rather than a joint vote.
Anthony, do you have a comment on this? Is there a right or wrong way to do this?
I don't think there's a right or wrong way. Some communities do it differently. If you look at, excuse me, your comparators, the ones that have addressed it, they all haven't. But for example, the way that you've currently got it written is very similar to Groton. I guess the only things that I would suggest here is, in terms of the timing, it can be a little bit vague when when they become aware of the vacancy. These these boards don't meet regularly, so it could be, within a first meeting of them notifying the select board of the vacancy. That's some wording that could just improve the timeline. But as far as whether you do a shared that board votes along with the select board, in that case, I would recommend if you keep that would be a vote of all those present. If you keep it with that structure, not a vote of one board or the other. And that's the way it reads now. It seems to be a vote of all those present.
So I guess, I think it depends on what people's sort of almost preferences are, but if you have a sequential vote, you're giving both boards or committees equal weight. If you have a joint vote, you're giving the larger, greater weight. So if you really want the two to have equal weight in the decision-making process, you need to do them sequentially. Otherwise, you are at the mercy of whoever has a larger number of people, and that is somewhat random. Not random, but it
that's
would
assuming
vary.
This board is all going to vote one way and another vote another way,
But you are giving it
Yes.
equal weight.
Yeah,
You're
that's
saying
true.
that this board has essentially one say,
Yeah.
and then this board has one say. If you completely combine them and say of those present, you are shifting
That's a
the
good point.
decision-making balance. So to me, it would seem more fair and equitable across all decisions, no matter what, is just to say you have a sequential
Yeah, I
I
like
mean, if they
that.
don't agree,
I mean, if we're truly saying it's a joint appointment, then
okay, and then if they don't
you want to
agree,
have them to have equal weight, then you go back to the drawing board.
If they don't agree, they can deliberate. I mean, I think the school committee did a great job with the
Excuse me.
superintendent just recently.
Exactly.
I mean, we have to assume,
I think that it's kind of 6 of 1.
yeah, right?
You know, the board that is looking to get an appointment is really the board that should, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, should be the one that has the most say, because they're the ones that will be the one that has to have that person on their board.
Yep.
Has to deal with that person, has to have their confidence, has to have them coming to every meeting.
Yep.
Now, if the select board say, well, we think this other person will be better for you. Well, we've been dealing with this person, they've been coming to our board meetings, they've been, attending all of our meetings. So why do you think that you know better than us? And so you want to make a joint meeting, a joint appointment, and I get that. And the reason you're doing a joint appointment is because that's what the law says. And so say for instance, the light and water department. So they have five members. Now they're down to 4 because they have a vacancy. They're going to the select board, which has 5 members. But if one of them's absent, now it's 4 and 4. So that you have, that equal vote. But if you're making a joint appointment and it's 8 votes, you can still have that 4 versus 4. So, you can still have that.
It's true.
The light department decides that, you're making a joint appointment. The light department says, we'd like person X, and they all talk, and they, say, this is why we want person X. And then the select board say, okay, but we think person Y is better for you. And so they are split. So you've got to have that ability to, say, well, we're the ones that really should have the right to push for this person. And so I think that in saying that, the select board should honor whoever is coming before them and weigh their opinion and weigh their vote more so than what the select board are doing.
so I agree 100%, and that's, I think, why I would say in that instance, otherwise, let's say taking that light and water example, you have a 4-5, potentially a 4-5 vote that would potentially be in overriding the board and the committee, whereas if you separated them out, you would say this is where the light and water committee stands, and then this is where the select board stands, which you would hope that they would.
I'm convinced.
I don't know.
Anything else?
I mean, it's supposed
care.
to be replacing a vote, because this was an elected position, so who most fairly represents the residents?
Well, that's true too, yep.
I'm for sequential, but I'll say I'm very troubled by what I watched in the planning board and select board deliberation. I think if not for Mark and Karen, they wouldn't have filled it, and I don't think that'd be right at all. So that concerns me a bit with regard to what we just witnessed in the planning board filling of a vacancy, to give it to the elected body that's missing a member. But having said that, I still side with the arguments that are made here that I think it should be sequential. I would just hope that the elected body would consistently attempt to get an additional voice at their table and not just say it's not worth for their reasons. And I thought Mark gave a pretty convincing, set of arguments to flip them around.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna make that
How do
fine
you-
wording to make it sequential, okay?
How do you word it though?
What's that?
How do you word it?
Well, just that, I guess that the board that has the missing spot, they get to promote, they get to recommend,
Get to recommend.
they get to recommend, and
But
then
it's still a joint-
select board, and then
But
the
it's
select board
not-
also-
In the end, it's
It's
still a
not
vote.
truly
You
joint.
vote by
It's-
board. You
Yeah.
both boards vote as a joint appointment, but one board votes as a body and the other board votes as a body. I don't know how you say that legally, but you
Well,
vote.
basically what you're doing though is you're saying that the one board recommends and the other select board has to either does or doesn't approve them, appoint them. Basically, is what you're saying.
If you do it sequentially, if you make
Yeah.
it one vote, then it is a real joint.
Right.
And personally, I don't care which way it is, just codify it.
I guess I wasn't trying to imply that the select board vote would override the committee vote. Yeah.
But
No.
they could veto it, basically. They say no, then you have to go back and negotiate
Then you'd have to
again.
go back and
And
negotiate.
negotiate
Yes,
some more, yeah.
yes.
Right.
As you would if you had some kind of, if you had a 5-5 vote as a
Right.
joint
Yep.
board,
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how you write that legally to.
I'll find it.
Can I
Fine
just ask
tune
a
that.
question?
Yes, sure, Carolyn.
How is it being handled if, like, in just a regular appointment, not a vacancy appointment, but you have someone come there, 2 people booked for one spot in just the regular course of business? How
For an appointed position now you're talking about?
Yeah,
This
This
is
is
elected.
specifically about an elected
Elected,
position.
But just.
If it's
so
appointed, then
Then it goes through a different process.
Well,
Yes.
so
By what you-
right now, the different boards and committees have an opportunity to interview the people,
Right.
and they can come and make a recommendation,
Right.
but it's entirely up to the select board who they choose.
Anyways, so it's, I mean, it comes down to the same process, it's just a different way of getting, a different reason for getting there.
Be the board and also the town manager would be involved going forward as well.
Yeah.
So-
Seems like 2 different things for the same thing.
Go ahead.
On Rob's point on the planning board, some of the discussions are, when do you and when fill a vacancy or when do you leave it open? Like, how long before the next election and so on will you allow a vacancy? And whose decision is that? So.
So, let's see.
Well,
It says within 45 days of the vacancy occurring, the select board shall call a special meeting.
well, there's going to be an election within a year anyway, so that's,
Well, in a year.
so it's going to be some portion.
Well, the planning board vacancy, they basically have 45 days
Right.
Right.
for appointing to someone for planning board. Is that a reasonable time to appoint someone, or do you just wait for the election to roll around?
Nobody just waited, you know.
But,
Yeah.
we can argue
That
both
wasn't
ways on it. I'm just saying, if there is a window, we should define what the window is, or the process for not appointing someone.
Well, but some cases you could, if you not appoint somebody, somebody cannot have a quorum, right? So it can be, you have to do it.
But right now, it says that we will, or
Right.
shall. So if there is the opportunity to not do that, you might need to clarify under
Yeah.
what circumstances it's okay to not appoint someone.
Say if it's within 60 days of an election or something.
If the appointment would be for X amount of time, then
So the difference is, with planning, if you miss X amount of meetings, they can't vote. So, yes, they're a warm body that takes a seat, but they can't vote.
Who can't vote?
So, at a planning board.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, because if you open up a hearing and you start voting on a hearing, if a person who is going to be put into on a board
Mhm.
has missed 2 meetings, they can't vote on a specific person. or
Oh, This is some specific to the
project.
planning board, so people have to be
Yeah,
involved and know what's going on.
So that's what, when you were talking about the planning board, so that was a specific, membership, that why the planning board were talking about not filling that specific seat. Because there was the opportunity that the person, anybody, doesn't matter who it was, may not be able to vote, because if, they didn't have anything coming forward, they wouldn't need that person to vote, because they had already missed 2 meetings for a specific project. So there's a reason why sometimes they don't fill that spot that close to an election. So
I
Yeah.
would assume the Board of Health would have the same thing if they're, because they do the hearings too. It's a hearing thing,
It's
not
a
a
hearing
thing.
thing, yeah.
If hearings are continued over multiple meetings and you missed
Yeah.
so many meetings.
Yeah. Two
then-
meetings.
Yeah.
But for this, the point was, there was an election, someone was voted in, for whatever reason, they can't continue, it's now vacant. The board and the select board had the opportunity to fill that, which I think sequential works, if no one agrees. And then the question is, if it's within X many days of an election, do they bother filling it, or do they just leave it open? We say within 60, if the vacancy occurs within 60 days of an election, I'd say leave it and let the people vote again.
Unless they don't have a quorum, and maybe they really need to do it. So,
But in reality, that would be what, 2 meetings maybe? How often do they meet?
Well, it's not
4?
just 60 days, it's when you have a 45-day notice added in. So now you're back to 105 days, plus arranging meetings, so it's almost, it can be quite a substantial.
Yeah,
period.
no, that wasn't my intent. I was thinking
No.
within 45 days, they do all this. If it happens to be within 60 days of an election, you just let the election run.
I mean, the planning board vacancy was 5 months before the election, right? It was-
Yeah, so that I
but-
would have.
But by the time we got around to
Right.
appointing it, it was within 60 days, so by the time the whole process plays out. There's another interesting thing too, is what happens if there's a vacancy in the town clerk, because there's not a joint appointment there, right? There's not a board you're dealing with. So I assume it's just a select board appointment, or is it a town manager appointment?
Well, that's an interesting wrinkle.
Let's close one before we get into the
Yeah,
next.
yeah. So the question here is timing, the one we're looking at.
right,
So like Mark said, you don't want it to drag on for 6 months before anything happens.
Which it wouldn't have been 5 months if this charter, as written, were enacted, because you'd have to do all
Right,
of that.
within 45 days.
But you also want a time box stipulation around, if there is an election coming up, how much time do we give before we say, you absolutely have to fill it, or no, don't even bother because there will
Right.
be an election?
Right. I mean, I think 60 days is reasonable. Unless you want to keep it 45 and 45, tighten the window.
Given what Mark just said about how long it actually takes in practice to go through the process, I would say 60 to 90. I mean, like, it seems like you wouldn't want to be starting this process, I mean, even 5 months out, it seems like it's kind of coming up against the election anyway, so maybe in more straightforward scenarios, it wouldn't have taken that long, but yeah, I agree with it's like a balance of the timing. I mean, 60 days, 90 days, but just, I think it's like some kind of get out of jail free card where you say, we're so close to the election, we don't have to go through this process.
we don't have to, but could we still do it?
Could, yeah, you could, but you don't have to. You're not forced to by the charter if you're within X days.
But what would be the point of doing it within?
Who knows, but I don't,
Yeah.
but, you know, maybe there's some obvious person, and so if you need them to be at the meeting for, if you have a case where you're pretty sure this is the person who's gonna end up in the spot anyway, if you appoint them now, then you get those 2 meetings where they're there and they can be active, otherwise you wait till they're elected, and now you still have to wait 2 meetings for these
How do you know,
hearings.
how
and
do you
they're
know
not
they're
there.
going to be elected?
Well, sometimes you kind of, you may, there's no guarantee.
I mean,
but
if
sometimes
they're
you
the
do.
only person on the ballot,
Well,
chances are.
which happens a lot around here,
I know,
okay?
I know, exactly.
So is there a requirement on the amount of time before the board notifies the select board? Because that's what took a while. That
It
can
says
take a while
within-
too.
Oh, that should be like immediate, right? What's,
Oh, actually, no, because it only says here within 45
the
days.
delay?
of the
From the
chair.
time that there is a vacancy, so it's 30 days, they have to notify.
So it's, yeah.
Where does that come from, down that they have to notify within 30 days? Huh?
Mass General.
Oh, okay, so that is as per master, and then the 45 days
starts
that
after they
is, so you've got 30 days, and then
No, 45 days is from when the vacancy occurs, not when they tell the select
Okay,
board.
Okay, okay.
So that means then they could possibly only have 15 days to schedule a special meeting.
We could.
So then the select board put, once the select board are notified, that vacancy gets posted for 30 days.
Here it's 21 days in here, but yeah, right now it's 30.
And do 30, yeah.
Anthony, do you have any comments on this? This is the stuff that gives me headaches.
Well, so I think, approaching sections like this, so under Mass General Law 41, Section 10, it's your default for vacancies, which talks about an election at an upcoming town meeting. So what these provisions generally do is, an election's a big deal, is generally allow you to make an appointment so that people are represented on the board or commission at in a much easier process than it would be for than an election. So, I think for this section, you've got a default. In terms of the time to an election. You've got your 45 days will work as a default, because if there's an election within 45 days of this vacancy occurring, which again I think is a little bit vague, because what does it mean to be cut that the vacancy occurs? If it, if these are bodies that are not meeting every day, they're meeting usually, bi-monthly or something of that nature. But putting that aside, so if the vacancy will be filled by an election within 45 days, then you've essentially set a 45-day cutoff for when this will happen relative to an election. And then you said the sequential voting. In practice, that'll mean that whoever the second body is ultimately has the say-so on what the appointment is filled. So it turns the first vote into a recommendation. So it might just be clear to just sort of state that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So in the shortest time frame, you could have a vacancy happening. Let's say they wait the longest time this happened, they wait the full 30 days to notify the select board.
Right now, this just says 21, but, right? Oh, no, this is publication.
That's
Okay, 30 days
No,
of the
so
notice. Okay,
by
yeah.
what you were saying,
Yep.
Mass State
Yep,
Law, they
sorry.
wait
Yep.
30 days,
Yep.
then they tell the select board. At that point, the select board only has 15 more days to schedule the hearing. But then if they've only got 15 days to fill the vacancy, because it says at that meeting they will fill the vacancy, but then notice of the vacancy shall be published for 21 days. So there is a conflict there. Like, we can't have,
So it
can't
needs
have the
to be-
meeting taking place in
yeah.
15 days after you find out about it, but then publish it for 21 days. So
Well, it's like Anthony said, what the definition of occurs means in this case is when the planning board the board next meet, is that when the vacancy occurs? Or is it when the resignation is actually,
All right,
yeah, maybe we need to workshop the timing.
does someone want to take an action item to go look at some other charters and see what other wording people have used, and if there's something that makes more sense than this, that they like better than this?
Sure, I will.
You will? All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I almost wonder if we're being too prescriptive in
Yeah,
the charter, and some of this could be handled by policy.
I'm thinking
Madam
that's where we're
Chair,
going to end
yeah.
up, right?
Yeah, and the really the exact version of this is in, if you look at Groton's Charter 3.1-7-2, what you have is almost exactly like this, the way this not 3-1-2, filling vacancies, recall provision, filling vacancies, 3.1.6.2 in the Groton Charter. Your version almost looks almost exactly like it.
Okay, but there'll be others that probably have a different approach, so. All right. Thank you. All right. Didn't think we were gonna spend that much time on that one. You never know, right? It's like town meeting. The things that you spend a lot of time on are not the ones you think they're gonna be. All right, moving right along here. All right, so 6.2E.
There we go.
Oh, that was the relationship disclosure. I don't know. So there was discussion about having a relationship disclosure as part of this process. I wasn't sure whether that disclosure was on the applicant or on the town manager or on the select board. And it's not in the current form when somebody's applying if they have
What kind of relationship?
a relationship, and so I don't even know where you would get that information. But do we need to address that, or, I mean, we say based on merit and fitness alone, is that enough?
Yeah, we've already said that.
Okay, all right. I'm fine with that, as everybody else is. I just, it came up, so, okay. G, or 6-2Q. Oh, no, this one, okay. So this one. So I think this is going to be impossible to get wording that works for. And again, it's kind of like the last one we were just discussing. Here we say the town manager has jurisdiction over leasing, rental, and use of all town facilities, including, except those that are under the control of school, board and light, water, library, and it should also probably be park and rec and Conscom and others. The problem is that our town records don't show correctly right now what exactly those properties are. That's one thing. So there's no way you can say the town manager has control, does this, but not this, but not this. There's no good way to say what they can do this. It kind of works today, but even like today, as I understand it, like Park and Rec controls the scheduling of the fields that are owned by the school department. So there's a lot of, it works, but it's not black and white. The second part where it says the town manager should be responsible for the maintenance and repair of all town property except blah, blah, blah. That's responsible. That's one of those words again. So what does that mean? Does that mean they pay for it? Does that mean that they set priorities? Does that mean they get the vendors to come in and do the work? And again, I asked the question a couple of times. It's like, well, it's everything. Well, unless it's historical property, maybe there's another funding source. Or if the library, maybe there's another funding source. But it's not, nothing's like, this is how it works. It's maybe. So.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
Just before you get to the conversation, so just two pieces of information for the body. So just number one, this actually is a very common provision for town charters.
I know.
And then number two, to your statement about, what is the property. So if you look at P above, I don't know about that numbering. So
maintain a complete
it's
inventory.
the town manager's responsibility to know what is or isn't the real and the personal property of the town. So you've already given them that responsibility to delineate what is or is not.
Okay,
personal
but it's
property.
town-owned, but is it Park and Rec? Does that say it's not town-owned? It's still owned by Park and Rec. It's still town. It's just you don't know if it's Park and Rec or is it not Park and Rec,
No, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
right?
But
So,
they, in theory, it's their responsibility to keep that inventory, that record.
So it's almost like those decision models again, where you've got a matrix of people.
well, yeah,
who are-
although if there were, if this stuff were clear, who owns what, then you could say that.
But that's what I mean. I
Yeah,
think,
right. Yeah, I know.
That's
Yeah,
part of the
responsible,
exercise.
yeah, right.
Is Fay Park, who owns it, who's responsible for the maintenance. I mean, somebody's just going to document it.
Right. So the charter may not be the right place for it, is the bottom line. Yeah, go ahead.
I had a question on one of the discussions you had earlier on that there was something about private groups renting town properties. Like the Houghton building is a town property that the historical society, we have 99-year lease.
Okay.
So how would that fit in there? Because we don't want the town manager renting out one of our rooms.
Right. Exactly.
And fit it in one paragraph. No.
Right. I think that building's a little different than some of the others town
But it's
buildings,
a-
but it's still a town
it's a good
building. so
exactly.
We need to,
Right.
But you have a lease on it, though.
we do have a lease on it, so as long as there was language that if there is a lease, then hands off, but.
So maybe we combine it with the inventory? The town manager shall develop and maintain a complete inventory of town real property and which board is responsible for maintenance, payment, whatever.
And what's the point? I don't
Renting,
know.
leasing, scheduling, I don't know.
I don't know. Groton's doesn't even have this. It's one of the, it doesn't even have it in there.
I mean,
Just
Yeah.
one more point
Sure.
on the leasing. So if you look at, I think it's H, the town manager cannot enter into a contract on behalf of the town without the select board's approval. And that's delineated also in H. I think it's H or somewhere up there.
Yeah, but still. And then we have, besides all these other things, now you got the orchard, where does that fit in with this thing too, right?
I mean, you could, I think one of the challenges is the exception line gets very, very long. But I wonder if you can say something like, you know, have jurisdiction over the leasing, rental, use of town facilities, including land and buildings, blah, 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 and be responsible for maintenance, repair, except for facilities, buildings under the control of boards and committees. Like, as opposed to just listing out every single boards and committee, like, that.
But that's what I'm saying, and then combine that and then say which is documented on the inventory.
As
so
per Q.
People
or as
know.
per.
Well, if you combine.
As
P
per
and
the
Q
inventory or
as
something.
one
I mean, yeah.
thing.
We keep
I think
finding all these exceptions.
Right, right.
Part of our charge was to make this work better, more efficient. So let's do it. He has the jurisdiction over all of this stuff, except for the Water Commissioners, Board of Library Trustees, and school. He also has the ability to delegate and to say, since Park and Rec is taking care of, say, the field at Fay Park, you guys run that. I'm not worried about it. It's his to do. If he has jurisdiction, he can then delegate. We shouldn't sit here and try to fix every little problem that comes up. And yes, even down to the room at the Houghton Building. I mean, this is ridiculous for us to be trying to work that in.
Yeah.
So can I point out that the Lake Commissioners and the Light and Water and Library Trustees are the boards that you still have elected. The Park and Rec and Conservation aren't elected, so they already report to the Select Board or the Town Manager anyway. So leaving them out and having the Town Manager having oversight of those is already kind of true through the normal chain of command.
Except that, the other thing I learned in pursuing this is that there's actually an exception in Mass General Law supposedly for Park and Rec, for CONSCOM properties. It doesn't matter what we put in here. If Park and Rec owns that property, then they have their board has control over it.
But no, if we approve.
That's what I was told.
Okay, and
I don't think, well, it depends on what you mean by control over it. I mean, nothing can be done on that land. It's the Chapter 97 land or whatever. I mean, you can't, it takes an act of God to change the usage.
I don't mean that. It's more who can say how it's going to be used and things like that.
Is there also a difference between, we're saying, departmental control, which minus, like as you were saying, Alan, like the town manager would delegate that to a department to manage, versus board or commission control? Because I feel like then that is where there is a different line of authority there, which we've set up. So it doesn't necessarily stand that the town manager could delegate that authority to an elected board or an elected commission. I think that's where a little bit of the line of authority. I agree we shouldn't get into the nitty-gritty of like how this happens on
All right, so you want to just say except for those under the control of boards and committees?
Elected boards.
I don't know, yeah. Maybe that's
where I'm good.
CONSCOM isn't elected.
Correct.
No, they have Mass General Law and some other things
is there a law?
supposedly in their
But,
favor, supposedly.
Yes, they have a lot of land, CONSCOM, a lot of land.
But I'm personally not troubled by the language that's here. And I think in many meetings, we've said essentially, we assume that people are making good decisions. If town manager's not making good decisions, then the select board deals with the town manager for not making good decisions. We can't figure out every nuanced element of 100 different things.
Okay,
I'd leave it.
okay.
Yep.
All right.
What's the next stop?
And you're okay with also the part about them, town manager's responsible for, and just leaving that, what does that mean? Yeah?
Yeah, I am, because the town manager can then, with regard to budgetary, can determine it's appropriate for a cross-charge to be, I'll just deal with Park and Rec. They've got a revolving fund, it's appropriate for the maintenance. The maintenance is done by DPW. If the town manager or select board wanted to begin cross-charging for field maintenance, they've got that ability to, to do that.
Okay. All right, excellent. 8.2, budget process. Back to this again. And my comments, please.
Down here.
Yeah.
Seymour.
So we're back to the, this is getting down into nitty gritty. We got dates and details and how things are gonna work. We have a financial policies that has been updated just recently. They go into this, and what we say is different from what they have in their financial policies. So, and honestly, I mean, this is a lot of detail. This is more detail than we get in most things in the charter in terms of the operational play-by-play kind of stuff, how it's gonna play out. So I checked with Anthony. He says it is acceptable to say, put in wording basically pursuant to the financial policies so that it's referenced elsewhere, but that way if they need to change dates, if they need to, for whatever reason, things change, they can do it without it being all dictated here. Comment, Rob?
Yeah, I've been arguing against that insertion of the policy into this charter. I continue to be that. I just ask, take a vote. Allow me to be a negative vote if you want to go this way.
Okay, so if you go down, because Anthony did tell me something else to put in if we do that, it's also, look at the comments again. But it should also mention who maintains the document and how often and when.
And see, here we're going back several months, and yes, they've maintained it in the last 2 years, and prior to that, they hadn't picked it up for years. I don't have confidence in that process. I respect that they picked it back up and they're actively pursuing it, but there could be changes on the membership. There will be changes on the membership of who those are, and it could be dropped again. I'm for clarity with something that has substance, and this has substance,
But
in my
it
opinion.
can't be changed. It's in the charter. It can't be changed. That's the problem. I mean, it may be that the players at that point really want to change something for legitimate reasons.
How do you enforce it?
Hmm?
If it's in the charter, how do you enforce it?
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, right.
I
don't
don't
know.
enforce anything.
I mean,
Right.
it's a law, so imagine you have to go to the Attorney General.
Yeah, but then that's,
Yeah.
okay, we got to do the budget this year, so what are we going to do, right?
We missed the date.
I mean, part of what the financial policies and procedures and the financial policies, what the finance committee does is the changes that they make are based off audits as well. So, I mean, if you make a change here, and then the audits come through, and their hands are tied by what you put in the charter, they're gonna be in trouble, because they're gonna say, well, the charter says we have to do it this way, and then the auditors come through and say, nope, we want you to do it this way. You're gonna be holding their hands and tying their hands to make them go this way, when the auditors who come through and say, no, you've gotta go this way. We've looked at what is happening here, and we believe that this is the best way to be proceeding going forward. And if you tie their hands with this type of a budget change, or this type of a policy change through the budget process.
Yeah, I mean, I worked in this business, so an audit renders a report that's to the organization that reports to. It's up to that organization to deliberate and accept the recommendations of the audit or not. So I don't agree. I don't feel like you're bound by it. You need to consider it, but you're the deliberative body to determine whether you implement it and when you implement it.
But if that happened though, Rob, I mean, honest, I hear you, and that's absolutely right. On the other hand, what if they say, yeah, that's a good recommendation, or, whatever reason, that things have changed, and we want to do what the auditors tell us to do.
Then you go to the next town meeting and submit an article that says, in order to be responsive with regard to this recommendation, we therefore endorse as a finance committee and as a select board to implement the following change to the charter.
Oh, then you go through the, yeah.
But that's gonna happen.
There will be changes to the charter for sure. It's just a timing process is the issue there.
Sorry, just to clarify, is the contentious point the date specific?
Well, no,
Because
just
the
in
rest of it
general,
we-
all the nitty gritty, the school departments will do this, and these people are gonna meet together, and this and that, and it's all the,
Because for the uninitiated in these processes,
Yeah.
this reads to me very high level and very general. Like, you meet, you determine budgetary goals, and you issue a message, and you
yep.
develop dates for making the annual budget next year, and then you meet and you submit a budget. I mean, again, it doesn't, and it says even as prescribed by general laws, the town manager shall make changes as necessary and inform. I mean, again, to the uninitiated of this process, it doesn't read
Right.
very restrictive, except maybe those two dates.
You just have to
are a
compare
little
this
bit-
to what's in the financial policies right now and see some of the nuances that are different, and there is some different wording.
Betsy, do
Well,
you know
can't we
who-
just align that then and keep the?
Well, maybe, but they may
keep
want
the
to change that. I don't know.
Like, keep the.
I don't know. Go ahead, Kevin.
Do you know who approves the financial policy?
The select board and the finance committee, in the joint meeting, we voted together. So the select board can actually be outvoted.
More people in finance. So that's joint, so that's a joint vote.
Can I say everything that you have in yellow has been the policy for at least 20 years? The dates might be off, but that's been the way it's been.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to compare the wording with what's in the, again, with the financial policies. You all can look at it too and see what you think, and whether we're good with just putting it in here or just saying they've got it there, and so let's just defer that and give them that flexibility again if in case something, again, it could be 10 years, could be 20 years like it was last time. The world changes, things change. I mean, the structure of the town could be different or something, and I guess if we do that, then you get a new charter too, so maybe it all goes together. All right, so another one not yet solved. Okay. There is also in B, I put a note in the original, in my other document saying need to update the new capital planning committee. But basically, it's not a committee, it's a work group, and so Steve says it does not need to be referenced here.
Okay.
Although, yeah. Yeah, but then you're back to, so you reference, again, it's relatively new. If it's going to change, then you go back to the financial policies again.
I'll wait until you determine what you're gonna propose. I just find that we're really back in the conversations I thought we pretty much concluded months ago.
So what would you suggest regarding the capital planning work group?
I haven't reviewed it in several months. I was surprised to see the recent memo that is revisiting it. I thought the capital planning group was going to be viewed as an appointed multiple member body. I didn't think it was going to be a unique unicorn of sorts.
Yeah.
And that kind of concerns me. That's another concern that I have pertaining to that working policy, subject to changes. And we're talking about transparency, and we're something pretty critical with regard to capital, and yet it's working its way into a,
Well, that gets back to who gets to form a committee.
well, to
which I
get
don't-
back to a lot of
yeah.
things. But again, I'll just hold off
covered.
and see what bring forward.
Yeah, but I feel like you're putting this all on me, right? So I'm supposed to come up with wording, and then people say yes or no. Well, I'm saying if you have something else you want, then somebody else can help me here. What is the wording you would like it to be?
I thought it was resolved.
Okay, but now okay, but if it's resolved, then there's no mention of capital planning work group in here.
Why does it
Are you
need to-
happy with that it doesn't mention it? Because I thought you just said you wanted it there.
It's an appointed, we don't enumerate every appointed group in there's tons of appointed
Okay,
groups.
then that's fine, but I thought what I heard you just said that you wanted it mentioned in here if it existed.
No,
it should
I'm just
mention-
saying how it's now something seemingly unique for, that's how I read Steve's comment, but not certain that I fully understand. We've never discussed Steve's
Right,
comment,
right.
just saw it. But
Just take it out.
I would take it out.
Yeah, I was gonna
It's
say,
too
why do we need to
specific,
mention
I
it?
think, yeah.
It's something new that may not last.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's probably not a good idea anyway.
All right, administrative organization,
What number are you at?
9-2.
Is there a way I can get rid of the page break? Like, is there another view? I can use?
Can't you scroll up a little bit so I can see the...
Nope. What'd they do? Oh, God, I broke it.
And then I don't have the comments.
That didn't work. Oh, go back. All right, everyone close your eyes till I get to the right spot so you don't get dizzy.
There you are.
All right, now we can see the whole thing on one page.
This is all, this is showing all of them. Is there one related to the current yellow? I guess that's what you thought you did that,
that's what
right?
I
That's what should
clicked
be
on.
that, right?
Yeah.
Updated wording for 413 minutes. Oh, yeah, but require authorization by the select board. That's what we put in there. Proposed by town manager, but require authorization by the select board.
So just to be clear what we're talking about, these
I
are
think before we
departments, not boards and committees.
That's correct. And this is, there's no, again, this is administrative organization, so this is not a new, something new, because then it requires money, and then that's town meeting, that's a whole
Right.
other thing. This is just the day-to-day workings of the town, and they're consolidating, or they're reorganizing, or something like that. Before it said, the select board was responsible for it, and
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
well, it really should come from the town manager, with the select board approving it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got the right thing.
Nice
Yeah.
and clean.
Yes?
Yeah.
Rob? Yes? Okay. All right, moving right along. Woo-hoo. All right, town elections.
Page after page after yellow page.
Well, town elections is pretty short, and we think we've gone through this with Diane already. You have a problem? Are there issues in here that you have with this?
I just think that one thing that probably the ballot position, I think that should be pulled out of the charter.
Why?
Because I think that that's something that, that the clerk's office should be responsible for and not shouldn't be, held to by the charter. That's something that the clerk's office has always been, unless you're gonna force that to, you know, we've always done it this way, and I don't think it's something that has to be told to us, this is how it has to be done. We know that's how it has to be done, this is the way it's always been done, and I mean, why does it have to be in the charter?
I couldn't find any charters that had this provision. I don't know where it came from. Most charters refer to the election date, that's 10/1, and then most charters refer to your other date is in bylaws. It's like 2 or 3 sentences. I couldn't find in our cohort anywhere where this exists. Further, 10.5, we could put 10.5 in virtually every segment of the charter.
Right.
I don't get 10.3, 10.4, 10.5.
But by going by 10-3, would the town clerk then have the opportunity to just change it at whim and change the order?
We're putting your name last.
No, I mean.
You would do that.
I mean, we could, if some future clerk decided they wanted to change it, I guess they could, I suppose, go to the town meeting and have a good reason why they felt it needed to be done a different way, but I mean, you'd have to go to town council and ask them, you know, this is the way it's been done forever in the town of Littleton, and this is Mass General law, and this is why we do it here in Littleton. We want to change to this way, and then you'd have to go to the state and say the state, we've decided that we want to change it to this way, and then we'd have to go to the Attorney General and get it approved by the Attorney General to change it that way. I mean,
So if the next election, you wanted to say, instead of doing it this way, where we say the incumbents are first and the other people are left, you just want to do it all alphabetical, you couldn't just do that? You could just, they're all alphabetical?
No.
Why? It's written, it's bylaw someplace?
It's not, it's been policy of the clerk's office.
Yeah.
And it's been, if you read the election laws, it states that the clerk's office has the authority to place on that based on law. Based on, and every city and town does it a different way. Littleton does it this way because it's been done this way since.
Yeah, but is it in law someplace, or is it just, that's the way we've done it, so that's the way we do it? It's policy, so you could change, the clerk can change the policy.
You could, but you wouldn't change it just because a whim, it's not a whim that we do it.
I'm not saying it needs to be here, but I'm just saying, I'm not sure I'm following the argument here that somehow.
So, because if you look at the Mass General law, so Mass General law says the election shall happen on such and such a date, blah, 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 and all that, and it has to happen within a certain amount of time. The way that the ballot happens, and if you read, so we have this book that's this thick, that tells you how you may put your people on the ballot, and it tells you the correct ways to do it, depending on your city or town. Is you can do your incumbents first and by alpha, and then your new people alpha, or you can do everybody alpha, or you can do however you choose to do. It's how your town has chosen to do it from the time that you were incorporated.
But I guess what you're saying, though, then, if I get this right, is that within the parameters set by the state law, there are options that you can do that are all legitimate options. So in that case, I would say that it doesn't make sense to keep it in the charter, because we're saying there are bounds by state law. So the whim bit is like, do you choose option A, B, or C? But all of those are permitted, so it's fine.
Right. I mean, you could change.
And then this kind of is then redundant in the charter.
Right. You could change it, but
you still have to change it within the bounds of state law. State law.
Yes.
Okay.
I would, based on my limited 15-second research, and I'm not a lawyer, Mass General Law, Chapter 54, Section 42.
Now you sound like a lawyer, though.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I Googled it
Playing one on TV.
Arrangement of names.
States that incumbents shall be listed first, and then otherwise be arranged alphabetically according but to their surnames.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
So then you don't need this.
Well, it doesn't need to be here. All right, after all that. However.
But if you look at, and it's interesting that you say that, because if you actually look at state election information, that's not how they do it. So, just to tell you, I do it the correct way. They don't so much.
You can get rid of 10.3.
Yep.
So is this now the official shortest section of the charter?
Are you getting rid of?
I mean, do 10.4 and 10.5 need to be there? I mean, 10.5, I agree with Rob, it's just
I don't
saying.
think the other two need to be, because so any one of our elections, local elections, are always nonpartisan. So, I mean, I don't know why local elections they're always nonpartisan. So there's no reason for us to put, we legally don't put what party any local person is, so that shouldn't be on there anyway, so.
And that's also governed by state law
That's
parameters,
right.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, nonpartisan.
All right, so we're going to go all three of those? Okay.
Nice.
Recall. So I think that probably the main issue here is just the percentage. I'd love to know the story behind that one. Somebody probably does, but it's not Sharon. So most towns are 10 to 20%. I think that's the standard. We have, what, 7,000 voters, about
7,600?
7,600 voters. And I think in the last national election, it was like 6,000 people voted. In the last local election, it was
We had 6,800 voters that,
in the national election. But in the last local election
Oh,
was
yeah.
like 1,300 or something, 1,600.
we would never hit what?
Right. Right.
And you have to get a percentage in each precinct, so it's not like based on this, we would never be, I mean, in all reality, the way that this was written, it was written to be near impossible.
Clearly.
It just,
So what's a reasonable number? I mean, 10% then is 700. That's huge.
I think that is almost as unreasonable as 25.
You think it is
You
700?
think 10% is too high?
Oh, yeah.
If somebody had an argument, or they wanted to recall somebody, and you're talking about 700 votes, couldn't you go as a group and get 10 people to get so many votes? You're not talking about a 20th.
But that's just the petition. That's just one part of the thing. Doesn't it take, where does the 25% come in? Shall contain signatures of at least 25%. If we take it down to 10, you still have to get 680, 760, something like that.
that's just the start.
But
yeah.
That's just the start. And then you're still going out to all voters to decide on it. I'm just trying to say, if some group, my opinion, once you're into, I've gotten 200 signatures on a petition, you're working pretty hard.
Well, no doubt, but if you have a small group of people that have an argument with a certain person, then you can get that person to be recalled, and it's a small group of people who are doing it. Because they're going out like you, working their ass off to get these signatures, but they don't represent the majority of the people.
But then you're still going to a vote that is representing all the people. And I
agree with that part.
I give great concern with regard to wasting taxpayer money and so forth with regard to elections, because it's expensive. But I'm just trying to say, 700 approximately signatures. Who's gonna do 700 signatures? Now hearing split into 3 precincts.
Yeah, you have to get a percentage of.
That's a
each
phenomenal, so if we're I think what we're trying to do is say 25% is absurd, it was never gonna happen, how did it ever get passed? Similarly, my question to you is 10% a similar threshold that's never gonna be met? And is our intent to bring something that allows voters to have a meaningful recall opportunity? Or continue, in my opinion, to still keep it 25? It's not gonna be done. It's not just a little handful of people.
So I have a couple concerns with going so low that, like Joe's saying, somebody gets ticked off about a decision that is made at a planning board or, a light and water department or a select board or whatever. Some meeting, some member ticks somebody off in the audience. They don't get the response that they want. They walk up to my office and they're like, I want this person recalled. And they find out I only have to get 100 signatures from each of the 3 precincts, 300 signatures. That's easy peasy.
Yeah.
Like, that takes nothing.
I would agree.
To me, that should not be the high point. it shouldn't be so easy that we are recalling and recalling and recalling. The reason, this recall petition was made at the bar that it was set at, so that it's not, the recall isn't done to make it just a whim, like, I'm just angry, I'm mad, I'm gonna do this just because I want that person recalled from that position. It's something that you really have to think about, you have to work at, and you really have to think that that person has not so much done wrong to you, but to the town.
So let me just ask this, I appreciate the last 5 minutes, but is 10% a high enough threshold? Or just, do people want it more than 10%?
I'd be good with 10%.
I'd be in favor of
But
10%.
that's the norm. I didn't see a lot of towns that did less than that. So.
Yeah.
But however, I will say, I don't see in here where it says it has to be by precinct. It just says total number of voters.
Doesn't mention precinct.
Right.
So is that in ours, or is that?
That's in the charter.
Okay. See, in ours, the one that we have now, there is like 3 thresholds that you have to meet, and you have to get so many from each precinct, and, so it has to be. So yours may be a lot easier than what we have now, so, because you have to hit each precinct, and, so it can't be just your neighbors,
Worth maybe looking to incorporate some of that language as well, because like you said, if the issue is that this person is not representing the town, then it should be something that all members of, there's a sort of equal representation, right, of the town, and not just because it affects one group of people in one part of town, for instance. Yeah.
So that's worth adding.
I think I would want to at least look at the language and see how that would fit. Yeah, I think that makes sense, and it makes it, like you said, hard work. I mean, reasonable, but still, it should sort of like cost you something a little bit to do that, because it shouldn't be so easy that you just do it on a whim, like you said.
Could I ask a quick question? I don't know what, Diane, if you know the answer. With the new development coming in, are they going to be incorporated into the existing precinct, or are they going to be their own?
So it's interesting you should ask that, because I just received the 2030 census. We've already started working on the mapping and all of that, and so one of the big questions is, do you have a big development that's going to be happening? What does it look like for people, for voters, for all of that? And so, my response was, well, we do have a large development that's going to be coming in, and so what I have to do now is, we have the 3 precincts. My suggestion to the state is, I want to take from Hager Homestead all the way down through Shattuck Street, all the way up King Street, but skip 550 King Street, but take all of them, put them over into precinct 1. So it'll encompass about 250 people, about 250 voters, put them into precinct 1, maybe a little bit more depending, on the total number, and then so all of them will be shifted over to precinct 1, and then 550 will be in precinct 2. And it'll give us approximately, because of the numbers that we have in precinct 1, precinct 2, it'll actually balance them off, because the precinct 2 is lower than precinct 1, so the numbers should shift to be exactly the same.
The reason I ask, I'm just thinking that might be a community that could vote as a block.
Yep.
If they had a big issue,
Yep.
it could be easy to go around and get a high number of signatures to
Yep.
influence that if
So
they were all.
They'll be in precinct 2, but this whole
Right.
connection down will be in
Right.
precinct 1 now.
I just wonder if they'd
So an
split.
argument for sort of having that equal weighting.
Yeah, I think that makes
But
sense.
almost
I
all.
like that, actually.
I don't.
Anyways, I just
don't like
brought
the
it up
precinct
to
thing?
say.
No. So what if you get 2 precincts, 25% of the population of 2 precincts saying recall, and the other one comes in at 9%? So one precinct gets to veto the wishes of the 2 other precincts.
I don't think that you're advocating, everyone's advocating that all the precincts have to have 10%.
Yeah.
I think if you said each precinct had to have at least 5? Or pick a number, a minimum number from each. It doesn't have to be 10% from each.
Oh, I thought that's what we were saying, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10% from each.
10% from each, or a minimum from each, and a total of 10.
If we decided to go the precinct route as opposed to total
I don't go
voters.
by precincts, I just go by total.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could argue that we don't, I mean, it's total voters, right, that gets you elected, not a percentage by,
Right.
a majority by precinct that gets you elected.
And then you could have a group with a very common situation that might all vote similarly, or it could be easier to get a precinct. So I would keep it total rather than
by
precinct.
But again,
Yeah,
that could be
enough
one
about
whole
electoral
precinct
mapping
that does a recall.
It could, you could, when you talk about it,
Well,
yep,
how many people are in a precinct?
But,
3,500.
but even if that's the case, it's still gonna go to an entire
Right.
townwide
So that's a
vote.
vote, right?
So,
So,
yeah, it requires an incursion of, expense to do it if some group got motivated and pulled it that way, but it doesn't mean it's gonna pass.
No, but I guess the point of, what you're saying is true, it goes to, the whole town votes on it. But I go back to the thing about, it just being a certain amount of people can get that 1,000 signatures if you have people that work hard and go out and get. So you're talking about a minority, that could be a minority of people, of putting one person, their name out there as being called for doing something. I think the threshold should be higher, not the 25%, but I think it should be higher than maybe 10.
Just the ordering to me, so you've got the 50 signatures to even begin.
Which I think is too low.
Then, okay, yeah, so you've got, because you could go walk into the clerk's office with 50 signatures and say, I want to raise this, in which case, in the way this is written, you then say, okay, off you go and get your 10%, 20%, whatever. If you get that, then you go to the vote. So currently, am I right that it's like a 3-step process, and there's a threshold at each step? Okay.
And I agree, I think the 50 at the beginning is way too low.
So the
Because then
50's
you
too
could
low and the
pro-
25's too high.
A group of 50 people,
And
they're tying up the
remember-
town clerk.
Remember that when you do, the other reason why you look at it, I think one of the reasons they looked at 25%, think about it, you're gonna call a special elections, which is gonna cost the town $15,000 to $20,000. So remember that.
Yeah.
So you talk only 10%, you're talking, 700 people are gonna cost the town $15,000 to $20,000. That isn't budgeted.
Yeah, but if you're saying, otherwise you say recalls are too expensive, we're not ever gonna allow them. I mean, that's not.
No, but I'm
policy
just
either.
saying. I get it, but I'm just saying, remember that if you're
I
saying.
understand, right, but even 760 signatures is a lot.
Well, it makes you
in
think.
21 days.
Right.
And that's going to go up by X percent.
And it's gonna go up,
With the
right,
development.
right, it's gonna be 1,000 soon, yeah, or eventually. Yeah, a little more.
I mean, you could sort of split the difference and say you go to 15%, which is still significantly lower than we have right now, but just raises that bar a little bit higher. And would be in keeping with some of the other comparable
I like
towns.
11.5%.
A new Allen rule.
16.23
and a half. 0.5.
Well, what are we thinking?
10%. Everybody agree? Good.
But I think you should still consider the 3 precincts. I think you should really strongly consider.
I would propose to raise the barrier of entry from 50 voters to something closer to what Groton does. They have 2% of voters just to get the affidavit started instead of just 50 voters. So that would be,
50's low. 50's low.
I agree
I agree.
that that's awfully low.
Because it's still a way, I mean, as you were saying, Diane, in terms of costing time and money, I mean, you'd still have to.
You get something on.
Not that much
a warrant,
happens with them once you get to 50 though, right? It doesn't cost the
Oh,
town that much to.
But I'd say, I'm open to increasing it, so I don't want to be critical. I think that's a very good point, Kyle. But I would argue that 2%, that's not that difficult. That's reasonable. You could easily pull that off with a few four motivated people could get that done like that. So if we want to change the entry bar to start the process, I'd bump it up a little bit beyond that, if that's what we want to do. And I support that.
My concern would be, let's say, I don't know, where I live, Ernie's Drive. If there's something that I don't like an elected official, something an elected official did that affects only my neighborhood,
Yeah.
then I could just keep I could get all of my neighbors to bring an affidavit and just keep doing it and tie it to town clerk. And I just wouldn't want that to happen. That's what I'm trying to prevent, because I think, and I didn't hear the comment, but I think within Littleton, there are things that only affect a small portion of communities, like, Long Lake. I mean, I don't know that I use Long Lake and my daughter uses Long Lake, but there are things that you see there and in your community sees that we don't see. And so that's what I would want to prevent, are these very specific, small communities.
So I'd be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be fine instead of 140, multiply that times 2, multiply it times 3. I'm all for
I was
it.
just explaining my position. I
Yeah,
wasn't
I
trying
agree.
to debate with you.
So no, I'm in agreement with you.
All right, so 2%, you want
And
to go that?
if you're going to say, okay, 2% or 2% to file the affidavit, then I think it makes sense to go a little higher with the to 15%, right, for the actual recall. I mean, otherwise you're looking at 2 to 10. I don't know, that it sort of starts to get a little
Did
fuzzy
we
there.
time box it as well? 40.
It's
Let
time
me
box
read it.
already.
2%, 15%. That's what I would like.
Rolling 10, 15, 12,
2 and 15.
I would go 2 and 15.
2 and 15? Everybody good? Precinct, yes or no? You decide no? You guys, people don't want to do that. All right. I think the rest of that's standard, right? Anthony, you got any comments for us? We okay?
Nope, none here.
Okay. General provisions. All right, so we really haven't done anything with this yet. We had this one comment at the top that was someplace else in the charter. We moved it here so we didn't lose it someplace.
What section are you at?
I'm on Article 12.
Okay, thank you.
This is all new. Below that is the standard wording we got from Collins, which is, again, the boilerplate, what's in general provisions. So I'm going to just go through that. Anthony, do you want to talk to this before we start talking about it ourselves?
Yeah, I'll just say very briefly that, if you look across various charters in your cohort, there's a wide range in what sort of appears in this
Can you get
section.
closer to your microphone, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
If you look across your cohort of charters, there's a wide variety of what appears in this section. What this sort of baseline is documenting some of the conversation that we've heard, particularly concerns around multi-member bodies and attendance and that nature. So those are some of the specific items added for Littleton based on the conversations of the committee.
All right. How do you want to do it? You want to just read them? Because I don't think you've also probably had a chance to really look at this very much.
Yeah.
So resignation of officers, 10-1. Any person holding an appointed or elective office may resign his or her office, by filing a resignation to the town clerk. And such resignation shall be effective immediately unless a time certain is specified therein when it shall take effect.
And that would be the date that starts the clock on the vacancy
If it's
process.
for an elected position, yeah. Well, yeah, I guess so. Well, do you always get resignations?
Well, to that point, there are multiple ways in which a vacancy can occur, but resignation is just one.
Right.
True. True.
So when somebody takes their oath of office, in that letter they receive, it states right there that they're, the only way that if they're resigning before their term expires, that they need to give me a letter of
Okay.
resignation. And sometimes they resign to their board and committee before they resign to me.
I'm sure. Probably sometimes they never do resign to you, I would imagine.
Well, in the case of disability or illness or death,
Or they just,
that would be.
yeah, right. Sorry. Okay, so, nothing controversial there. Removal of appointees. Any person appointed to an office, board, commission, or committee may be removed for cause by the appointing authority. Where the appointing authority consists of 3 or more positions, a majority vote of the full membership shall be required for removal of an appointee. Removal procedures for individual positions specified by this charter or the general law shall supersede those in this section.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Say that, say that
Oh,
again?
sorry.
Looks good.
Okay.
All right, 10.3. Where provisions of this charter conflict with the provisions of town bylaws, rules, regulations, and orders, the charter provision shall govern.
Charter provision shall govern? Even if it's an elected position?
This is just laws and rules
Yeah,
generally. If
it's
there's
how
a
it-
conflict.
Relation of charter to bylaws, rules, regulations, orders, and special laws. This isn't about elected positions at
Okay.
this point. This is just, again, general provision, so this is a,
Catch-all.
yeah, basically.
Why wouldn't you want bylaws to govern?
Why would you want what?
Wouldn't you want bylaws to govern?
No.
The charter.
That makes
Otherwise,
it-
if you can override the charter anytime you want then.
But that, well, yeah, so isn't that the point though? Is you want to be able to write bylaws to change things or to add things? Oh,
The purpose of the charter is to put it in stone, and so to change it, you have to go to state law, you have to go to state legislature. I'm sorry, I turned that off.
okay.
So,
That's going back to the arguing that less is more in the charter.
Yeah, you would want to avoid a
Right.
situation where you'd have conflict between a bylaw and
So you want
the
less things
charter.
in the charter because you want the bylaws to cover what's not in the charter.
the things that you
Specifics.
want to be able to change should be in a bylaw.
Yeah.
This is really the
I don't view it
guardrails.
as, I don't view it as less is more. I view it as important that we want to be rock solid.
Things
Or
you
in the
don't want to
charter.
change for 10 to 20 years.
And then, and leave all the other stuff that's subject to change in bylaws or policy.
Guardrails.
And to a certain extent, I think the charter forms that foundational parameters for everything, and then the bylaws are like the more specific implementation almost of those pieces. So I see it as a kind of a pyramid where it's not like a bylaw over here and the charter over here. The charter forms the foundation, or state law forms the foundation. Then you have the charter about like how your town is going to organize itself, and then the policies and bylaws fill in the gaps.
All right, specific provisions to prevail. To the extent that any specific provision of this charter shall conflict with any provision expressed in general terms, the specific provision shall prevail.
Can we be more specific? Wow.
Yeah.
Is this boilerplate?
You take it out if you think it's silly.
No, no, no.
Imagine people.
I
No,
imagine
that's not what,
these
that's not what
You know
I'm
what you're
saying.
saying? Okay.
I'm saying this is
In here.
boilerplate
Yeah, yeah.
language in all the
Yeah.
charters.
Yeah, yeah.
There's nothing special
Right.
here at all.
No, I know, but I'm just laughing. Someone's gonna argue.
You know it's here
about it.
because someplace.
Is it specific or is it
There's an
general?
issue, right, right?
Good
Somebody
grief.
got in trouble.
Somebody got in trouble someplace. All right, 10.5, severability. In any provisions of this chart, if any provisions of this charter are held invalid, the other provisions of the charter shall not be affected thereby. If the application of the charter or any of its provisions to any person or circumstance is held invalid, the application of this charter and its provisions to other persons and circumstances shall not be affected thereby. Okay. Periodic charter review.
Yeah, I'd like to, this is, once we have a charter, to have our group 10 years from now go straight to town meeting and bypass select board. I just want to raise the point. That's what this is saying. You report to town meeting. Select board gets to appoint everybody just like they did here in this group. But what says here is you go straight to town meeting.
Wait, where does it say that?
Third line.
You read it. 10.6. So, I guess, should I read it out loud? Not less than once every 10 years, and each year ending in a 6. A special committee consisting of 7 members shall be established to review this charter and make a report with recommendations to the town meeting concerning any proposed amendments that the committee may determine to be necessary or desirable. The committee shall consist of members to be appointed by the select board. The committee shall meet to organize within 30 days of the call of the select board to establish the committee. The committee shall make its report recommendations within 12 months of organization unless extended by the select board.
So I guess the other part that I want to just ask is, just reading it, it says make recommendations. Are those recommendations actionable as in an article at town meeting, or are those just recommendations? It seems vague. And I'd just like to ask what the thinking of everybody is. Is that make a recommendation and doesn't go anywhere, or is that a recommendation that's automatically reviewed by town council and goes into article form?
Well, it says, earlier up, it says, shall review this charter, make a report with recommendations to town meeting.
But that's, to me, a recommendation, town meeting would be an article.
Yeah.
And so then I would confirm
Say
that
that.
that's what we're
Spell
saying,
it
and if
out.
that's what we're saying, then let's say that.
Why wouldn't we do similar to the way it is now, the initial one, and have it?
Well, it depends, I mean, I don't know,
Select
and
board.
Anthony could probably talk to this. I know I did talk to Mark Haddad briefly, and then they, of course, they just went through this, they did an update, and they have an ongoing charter committee, and he's on it, so he's the town manager or whatever, and he's on that committee. I would imagine select board members are on there, I don't know. But it's different than this, because you're not starting from scratch, and it's not, generic, it's like, this, something's not working. We need to go through and address it and get better wording, and what do we want to do? So I would think you would have a much more operational group of people at that point, I would think.
But I do agree, though, that it is a little vague what the output is, and I think that's maybe what I would say that I mean, maybe we want it to be vague, I don't know, but to make a report with recommendations that will be brought to town meeting for a vote, or, something that says, not just
And if you do
an
that, that-
informational presentation at town meeting, but I think that's what is implied here, that's what the intention is, but I would agree, it just comes across as a little vague. I also have no idea why the year has to end in a 6. I mean, has to be in the year of the rooster. It's
So
like,
two
that's
things.
confusing.
I think the reason they're saying 6 is because if we're agreeing with this year, it's a 6, so it's 10 years, so this is 2026, 10 years is 2036, so every 10 years. But the only thing about going to town meeting, it has to go to the select board in order to be on a warrant article, so.
Right.
I know.
Oh, so it's kind of.
By definition, if you're making the recommendation, it's
Right.
gonna go through the select board.
It's gotta
and
go to the
then
select
it
board,
But-
so.
But no, not if it says in the, I may be wrong, but
The select board controls the warrant.
The warrant is controlled by the select board.
if the charter controls the select board.
Yeah,
So.
You're right, it
so-
does.
So I don't think the existing rules pertain.
So
The
the
charter,
warrant is no longer gonna be in
no,
control of the
I'm
select board?
I'm not saying the specific warrant, because the warrant's dealt with in the charter as well. So I'm just saying with regard to the way that I would view this is this is saying the authority to take it to town meeting in the vague way that it's saying it, that's supposed to happen.
So
And that's the
who is
point
in
of why
charge
I'm
of the
drawing
warrant?
this conversation out a little
Based
bit.
on your charter.
Well, I think there's two different things going on. We're saying that the select board is in charge of the warrant, but as it's currently written, it could be interpreted that a future charter review committee would be allowed to put an article on the warrant directly. If we don't want to imply that, then I do think the language needs to be tweaked. Because you could read this and you could say, oh no, I'm on the charter committee, and it says I can make a report to town meeting. So I just think we want to avoid that weird language.
Can I put another alternative on the table? Get rid of this paragraph?
But then how do
Oh,
we?
no, you need to.
You have to have a
No,
charter
no,
review.
No, you don't. My alternative is a viable alternative.
I agree.
Thank you. So I think it's overly prescriptive, and I think it takes away flexibility, and it's just, once you open this door, once you begin this paragraph, then you start getting into weeds, and it's prescribing things that I don't think you want to prescribe.
What would the alternative be?
Being silent on it, and letting the select board decide when and under what circumstances and how such a review will take place, just like they did in this case.
Okay, I just want to clarify that we say in 29B, we specify that boards and committees can bring warrants and the select board has to put them on. It says it in here. Okay.
But that's if we were to strike it, then it's gone. This language, I think, exists in virtually every charter that I read. But the point's a good one. Doesn't have to be there if you don't want to mandate that it's going to be reviewed every X years.
I think that should definitely be in here. I mean, again, who's going to enforce it is another thing, but you just need to specify it needs to be reviewed. And then if you're going to review it, then there has to be a committee, there has to be a group that does it, and you're telling them if you're going to have a committee, then you got to come up with okay, what's your recommendation? At the end, it may be don't change anything, but you made this committee, and so they have to do a recommendation, of some sort.
You could just change the wording, though, that, you know, that the select board periodically will form the committee to review it, and we'll just leave it at that.
Maybe the select board wants to do it. Maybe they don't want a committee to do it. Maybe they want to do it. Maybe they want to take more than 12 months. What does it say? Within 12 months? I don't think so.
I agree that it's too prescriptive, but I think that this is going to be, even in my very brief read of this previously, like this is going to be one of those provisional pieces that will be kind of contested or looked at, because people who love the idea of the charter are going to say, great, like, lock it in. People who are like, well, hold on a second, how do I get out of this? Or like, what if I see gaps in it? How do I update it, change it? So I don't know that we can get away with, or we should completely avoid mentioning, like, what are the review provisions. Now, I think you can have that be that the charter should be reviewed at minimum once every 20 years and keep that maybe time frame far broader. It could be reviewed, or, you know, the select board can bring a rationale for it. Citizens can bring a rationale for it. I mean, like, you could have it as broad as possible, and I think to not mention how you would review / update, edit something that is so binding, I think will cause people a little bit of concern not to have it in there in some way, shape, or form. But this does seem a little, to me, it seems a little prescriptive to say, like, within 12 months or within 30 days. Like, you're basically then at that point describing the committee's operations, and that does seem a little, I would agree, that seems pernickety.
Can town meeting call for a review?
Yep.
Well, how?
Town moderator.
How could town meeting call for a review of the charter?
My understanding is the town moderator can create ad hoc special committees. If approved during a town meeting, legislative body voting to somebody puts a motion that's recognized in a town meeting, that could start it. I'm just trying to answer your question, that's my understanding. Sam,
Can I
But it's going
comment?
against-
very
Is
briefly?
that Anthony? Go ahead.
Yeah, so there are several ways in which, if we're talking about reviews, there are communities that have charters, town form of government, where someone submits a warrant article that obviously has to be voted on, where they ask the select board or the town meeting to form a committee to review the charter. Obviously, the select board can form a committee like this one at a future date, and as was just stated, a committee of the town meeting through the moderator can be formed. One other thing, just for this conversation, is that this is a mandatory review every 2 years. The charter can also be changed at any time through a special act, or there's a provision of state law through the state constitution that lays out a process by which towns may modify their charter. There are actually two different pathways. One requires I'm not going to get into all the details, but one requires a town a vote if it's going to be a change specifically to things like terms of elected positions. Others just require a town meeting vote. So there are, this isn't the only avenue to look at and review. It's just this provision is usually around mandating. We want to make sure that this charter is looked at and kept up to date and modern for whatever period of time the community chooses.
So if you, based on what he's saying, if this needs to be reviewed every 2 years, is that what he said?
No, I think he said that, but it's right now it says every 10 years.
So if you're saying that this needs to be reviewed every 10 years, or this board decides that whatever amount of time, might I suggest that I'm not going to be here, but on the website for the charter committee, and I know that this specific charter committee is going to disband. However, the charter itself, or if it gets voted in or whatever, the charter itself should probably have a caveat in it that pops up in whatever amount of time frame that says reviews needs to come up in a year's time or whatever, that so that that the select board get a reminder, or the town administrator gets a reminder in 9 years or in 8 years that you got to form a new committee, so that the website itself is sending a reminder out to whomever that this committee needs to be reformed or whatever, because there are things on our website that do that. So, I mean,
Well, that assumes you get the same technology.
Yeah, I mean, I would
years.
think that,
Yeah.
it'll be even better by that
Yeah.
point in time.
Using websites that.
Yeah, just have a
right,
chip in there.
exactly.
Mine don't.
Yeah.
And to that point, again, like having something
Let's
that's
don't
in the
get the
charter,
weeds
so if
and
anybody
guys.
picks up the charter and goes, when are we supposed to review this thing again? There's at least something in there that says within these
Even on the
broad,
second page,
yeah.
on a blank page or whatever, put, needs to be reviewed in,
Yeah.
2038,
Can I just ask,
2030, whatever.
do a majority of us want a provision like this included in the charter? Why don't we, I'd just like to go sequentially so we can determine, do we think we want to have something like this in the charter, or do we not?
Yes.
yes,
Something.
Okay.
something, yeah.
For me, it could say, this needs to be reviewed every 10
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just wanted to cross that threshold.
Yeah, thank you.
And then if we're crossing that threshold, do we like the idea of going straight to town meeting, or do we think that it should go back to a select board review, similar to how we're operating on the initiation of the charter?
Well, if we just simply say will be a review every 10 years, that's the only we need to say.
I'm just, well, okay,
Yeah.
but then that would possibly strike, I'm not trying to put words in your
Yeah,
mouth, it would
but
possibly
everything
strike
below
the
one
two-town
sentence,
meeting.
boom, it's out.
Okay, and that's why I'm asking to clarify.
Yeah.
Because this
Sure.
seems to me to be vague and challenging which I was just trying to see where are we collectively going?
What is the
I would
specific
say that I would
provisions
want it to
would
follow the
prevail?
same process we're following now, where we have a committee, we make our recommendations, it goes through town council, it goes to the select board, and then it goes to town meeting.
And I'm open to that too.
I don't think we should be that specific.
I wouldn't say that I'd put that in the charter, but I would like to see that same process, because I think if you don't go to town council, for example, and you try to put
Well,
something.
you'll still be a selectman then, so you can.
Yeah, I think if we want to just have it to be something, a point of reference, then keeping it simple and straightforward, the charter must be reviewed at a minimum once every 10 years. I don't know, Anthony, if it makes sense to say, but can be changed as per provision, blah, 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 state law, blah, blah, blah.
I don't think we even need to do that because
You know,
Mass
'cause we
General
know
Law gives you that.
It gives
So-
you the option to change it tomorrow if you wanted to. You don't need to.
I guess that would be, I mean, with getting into the detail of what the process is in terms of like all of us, if it's a full review, like this has been 10 years, let's look at the whole thing again, yeah, that makes sense. But if it's a year into it, you say, you know, we really didn't get this one right, we need to fix
Right,
it.
you wouldn't want
You
to-
don't need to do all this to that, right? So-
Right, and 10 years from what? So if you go along, you get this new charter in place, and 5 years in, you do a little tinkering, you don't do any, you don't do this, but you do some fixing. You get legal counsel, you do some fixing of stuff. 10 years from what? 10 years from that 5 years, or 10 years from the
Well,
original?
that's why the 6 is in there. Year's ending in 6.
That's why the 6 is there.
That's why the
I like the year of the rooster. That's a.
Yeah.
I still don't get the year,
I wasn't
still don't get the sixth
Okay,
thing.
so 6,
Yeah.
right, because it's from
I
the
don't get it.
original date
I
of,
think it's under the assumption that it gets passed
It's-
in
I
a
don't-
town meeting in 2026.
But my question stands.
Oh,
We
is that
put
why
this
the
in
sixth?
place.
No, that's why the sixth
This
is in
charter
there.
in place in 2026, and we play around with it in 2030. We have to do another review 10 years from which date?
The original.
The original.
Great. That's why it's a 6.
So you have to do, so the tinkering that was done midway through the 10-year doesn't count. And you've got to go through a holistic review 5 years later.
Yes.
It's like minor maintenance versus scheduled maintenance.
I mean, given that this is the first charter that Littleton will have, and given the changes we're expecting to see in the town and the world, I think, and everything, I think when they review it, they might decide in 10 years' time to have a more light touch, or, you know, every 5 years, every 20 years, every 30 years. But I don't know, I think we should be a little conservative in recommending review. As in, when I say conservative, like, yes, even if you've tinkered after 5 years, you need to sit down and review this whole thing again in 10 years' time. Because it's the first time we've done this and things are going to change. And then if they want to do that in perpetuity, fine. But maybe the next review might suggest, okay, we're pretty good at this now, we know what we've got locked in. Maybe we'll change this to say that we now need to do this every 20 years. Whatever. But 10
Things
seems
change.
reasonable
Yeah.
to me.
And probably less, honestly, but anyway. All right, so what do we decide? Not less, so we leave 10 years and a year ending in 6 to be determined, but, and then just leave the rest of it out, not what special committee and who's on it and how many and all that kind of stuff, just leave all that stuff out?
Yep.
Right.
Is that,
Okay with that.
is that where we are? But we really don't talk in here anywhere, though, about corrections and so on, right? How that would happen? Anthony, that's not really addressed, right? I mean, it just seems like we ought to mention that someplace, that besides the once every 10 years, there is a process. I mean, do you even say that, or it's just known, or what?
When you mean corrections, you mean like
Yeah, we
like
just get through
Scrivener's
it. We say,
errors?
oh, gee, we missed this, you know, and this thing in the charter, go ahead.
But that's different. He's asking about Scrivener errors. You're not talking
No,
about
I'm not
Scrivener.
talking about that. I'm just talking about, you know, we thought this was right, and then we get through it, nah, it's not working the way we thought it was gonna do, we wanna change it. But some very specific in there. So we wanna go in, you know, 2 years in, you say, we really need to fix this reporting relationship or something, whatever it is.
That's why we say not less than. once
Okay.
every 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah, part of that is the
Implies
purpose
you
of
can do it
the
every year if you wanted to,
review.
but not less than.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're, I'm sorry, Anthony, what were you saying?
I was saying, if I understood the question, that is the purpose of the review, is that we will look at this holistically every, whatever time period you use, that we will look at it to make sure that it's working.
Yeah, but I'm saying the other way. It's like, we realize something's broken. And so we need to go in and fix it. We're not waiting for a holistic review. This is like,
So there are
no.
some unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Well, you've got the other paths to amend the charter, again, special act and then state law and the
Yeah.
state constitution.
Yeah. I just don't know, shouldn't that say that in here someplace though, rather than, because this is talking about holistic reviews. I'm like, okay, that's great, but should we say in here that there is a process for, what is the
I don't think
process
it
for
needs to
fixing
be.
it?
I don't think it needs to be said, but if you want to add a provision, you can.
See, I don't think it needs to be.
You don't think it needs to?
I think the select board, the select board, I would think would be the body that would say,
Okay.
we've got to deal with this problem, and they would then get
Then we
town
know the
council,
process.
say, how do we go through the process?
I'm good. If you guys are good, I'm good. All right.
I would agree. I think that this, to me, comes back to like what accompanying information needs to happen or accompanying education needs to happen around a charter. We need a select board that is going to be well informed about what a charter is, how does one change a charter, what is the relationship between a charter and bylaws, like, from a town that doesn't have a charter to a town that does have a charter, there is some sort of governance learning curve there. And whoever's on, as that select board turns over the course of 10 years, that there's a mechanism for that knowledge to be known. Because, I agree, you would want someone, presumably town council also knows it, but to say this is how these things interact with each other.
Okay. It's 8 o'clock. You want to keep going or just cut it here and then bring it up next time? We've done a lot tonight.
And we've still got minutes, don't we?
Oh, yes. We'll do that.
Public
Oh, public opinion, public comment?
I just have a question. You have the charter, and then you have recommendations, that, putting cemetery under highway. Where are those recommendations? How are those going to be presented? I don't see them in the charter, so are they?
Well, we don't say that they'd be under highway. We would just say that the cemetery superintendent basically doesn't report, it no longer says that they report to the cemetery commission, so by definition, they're going to report to the town, within the town manager structure.
Is that in the charter?
It's kind of by default is what happens is, because it doesn't say that they report to you or that you're hiring them, then it says the town manager basically has control, everybody else reports up through that town manager structure.
So how does that move the cemetery to highway?
It doesn't necessarily.
Okay, so how do I make sure that I don't miss that?
So I think that wouldn't be a recommendation that the charter would make. The charter would say that then the director reports ultimately up to the town manager. It then would be a discussion with the town manager as to how the organization of that department would fall. So that then becomes an operational discussion outside of the charter.
Well, that wouldn't necessarily come to a meeting, or?
That's a town manager's decision at that
The
point.
town manager at that point would then decide.
Yes,
So we don't want that to happen, okay.
I understand.
But
Well, but then we also say if you create a department, it has to go to the select board, right?
So doesn't that go into the reorganization provision that we
Right.
started talking about 2 hours ago?
Yeah, that's what I
Because
mean.
that would be,
I agree.
it would be a reorganization.
Yeah, but that's why I'm trying to give Carolyn that would be a discussion
Yeah,
point
right.
with regard to initiated by the town manager to say, now that we have a charter, this is what I'm proposing, this is what I want to do, I'm informing.
And that has to go through the select board to be voted on by the select board before it changes, or can the town manager just do that?
Yes.
It would,
It would
I
have
think
to
the
go
way that we've written it, it would have to
Yes,
go to the
be
select
proposed by the
board
town manager, but
to
require
approve.
authorization by the select board.
Okay.
Section 9(2).
92, I'll remember that,
Right.
thank you. All right, thank you.
No. Thank you for being here.
You did raise something that was on my mind that I wanted to actually ask back to the committee is just, as we've moved through the process, there are a few things where we've said there are like a recommendation or something we've noted doesn't fall in the charter, but do we want to kind of just aggregate those and kind of provide it to the select board as
Right,
like a
board.
FYI.
Yeah,
And
that was my understanding. We collect the
we've
findings
collected
and
these.
summarize them and say, not for us, but here's what we found.
things that bylaw maybe changes or policy things, etc. And then, so that's one. Then, you know, we say we're going to give a report of our recommendations, but right now we have the charter. We have the couple primers. Are we planning on still writing an actual narrative report that summarizes all of our recommendations?
Yes.
Okay.
I think similar to what you did for the rationale as kind of the cover for the draft that went, I thought that was really well done. Not that it'll also be on you, but that type of format and summary of here's the issue, here's what we thought, this is where we landed.
For basically everything that's currently in the charter.
Plus some of the things, like you said, that we just.
And then there's like almost like an
marked off.
answer
Yeah.
that just came up. Yeah, okay. Because if that's also going to have to be handed off to the select board in this early summer, it's probably something we want to just draft and discuss, at least have time to circulate it. I imagine it's going to be pretty, for us, it's going to be pretty neutral, like, yep, that's what we discussed, and it's not controversial for the group here, but I just would want to make sure if we're handing over a document that's like, this is the summary of everything we've discussed, that we've had chance to discuss. We've had chance to review it, I guess. Okay.
I actually may have an item, I don't know, that might go in, might not go into the charter, but might be something we might want to comment on, and it relates to something that the DLS spoke to fairly prominently in their report, and they spoke about the creation of a CFO position at some point in the town. And they went on at pretty good length about talking about the rationale. And I don't know if we've talked about that as a committee, and whether we should talk about it as a committee, and whether we should opine on it and share thoughts with the select board about a CFO at some point. And good reading about it here on
It is.
pages 9 and 10 about the rationale. And it might relate, Betsy, to another open item about somebody
Yep.
reporting to the select board.
Yep, and that's still on my list.
Yep.
Haven't gotten that far. All right, you want to quickly do minutes? Or you want to put them until next week? Let's do it now. Diane, you better do it now.
Oh, well, we've also already got two backed up, so.
All right, okay, so minutes for 3:30. This was a joint meeting with the select board, I believe. That was a long one. Anybody make a motion?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, approved. Passed. Was there a question?
No.
Okay.
Flying around.
You don't like our
It's
minutes?
got bugs.
All right, yeah, okay, minutes from 4/13, our last meeting, April 13th. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion, corrections? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Approved. And
Move to adjourn.
Second.
now he seconds. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you. Good night.